Am I on the right line?
Feliz.
Oh, hi, how are you?
Good. How are you doing?
Good. This is the right line.
Yes, this is a correct Zoom link. Um,
Okay.
I will just quickly let people joining. And in the meantime, I will just quickly introduce myself. I am Faiza Rouge, and I represent No Worker Left Behind, a nonprofit focused on workforce development, AI upskilling, and career transition. And I welcome Elise Lynn with us. Elise is a human resource business partner at Citizens Bank. Thank you so much for giving your time today to us, Elise. And I really appreciate you sharing your journey with us.
Absolutely. Very happy to be here and thank you for having me. Yeah, my name is Alice Lynn. I actually used to work with Deeksha at Liberty Mutual, but currently I work at Citizens Bank as an HR business partner. I've been here for a year and a half. My career spans, so I'm in HR now, but my career spans strategy, analytics, operations, and now in HR. So I started my career, I'll give you kind of the career story, but I started my career as an actuary. I've always enjoyed math and statistics, even though I studied psychology, because I always like to think about how people make decisions, how groups interact, what makes people tick. So it's like kind of the balance of the people side and also the analytics and statistics side. Um, and then I worked at Ernst and Young in actuarial consulting, working with life and health insurance companies, helping them manage their risk. And I love the consulting piece of it, where I got to work with clients to like help them solve business problems and partner with team members in order to navigate some of these more complex challenges that our clients were facing. So I liked the consulting piece of it. However, the actuarial piece, I wanted to broaden my business knowledge, and I felt that was very narrow at the time. And so I utilized the consulting background and transitioned into an energy consulting company. So
Mhm.
much smaller kind of startup at around 100 people after coming from a tens of thousands of people company at Ernst and Young, where I managed the cost intelligence tool where we helped energy companies better understand their underlying costs of operations and maintenance projects and capital construction projects. So thinking about like steel and wood and labor and what those costs would look like and how those would impact different energy projects. Um, and then from there, I wanted to continue to round out my general management experience. So I transitioned to get my MBA at the Tuck School for Business at Dartmouth, where I was for 2 years. It was a great experience. I absolutely love New Hampshire. I'm very outdoorsy, so it was a nice time to get to build a network, get to learn about a variety of different business concepts that I had not been familiar with before. And then while I was there, I interned with Deloitte Consulting in strategy and operations, and then I took the full time role coming out of school as well. So got to work on a lot of cool projects, ranging from drug diversion, analyzing drug diversion at CVS, to a divestiture at eBay and PayPal, to some vendor operations rationalization work at, uh, at Biogen, a biotech company in Boston. So great way to, but you kind of go in and you create your recommendations, share learnings, but and then you don't necessarily get to see that impact down the line of your work, which is why I wanted to transition to a company where I can build a longer term career and see the impact more clearly of the work that I did. And so from there, I transitioned over to Liberty Mutual Insurance in Boston. Many of you probably know the commercials of Liberty, Liberty, Liberty. So I was there for 8 years, where I was able to navigate a variety of different types of roles. That's one of the great things about some of the bigger companies, where you can leverage some of the skills that you have that are transferable into a variety of different roles. So where I started there was in a talent analytics organization, doing strategic workforce planning. And the reason that I got into that as you can tell, my career has kind of navigated a variety of different avenues. And so
Yeah.
as I was transitioning from consulting to Liberty Mutual, I wanted to be really thoughtful in terms of what type of job I was taking on. And so I did a lot of, had a lot of conversations with mentors and friends, and did a lot of self-reflection in terms of like, in my career so far, like what has energized me, and where do I want the direction of my career to go. And an opportunity opened up within talent analytics, as I was mentioning, that was a perfect combination of my interest in like people and psychology and how groups interact and how group organizations function, combined with my consulting experience and strategic thinking and analytical skills as well to transition into this role. So I didn't have any talent experience, but I was able to leverage some of those transferable skills developed from other parts of my career. And that was my favorite job. So like that thus far in my career, I just felt very, very energized by, the juxtaposition of both that people side and the strategic side. And then from there, I really wanted to get to better understand like the business. Because on the HR side, you get to see a lot of parts of the business, but you're not embedded into it. And so I moved over to the commercial insurance side of the house, where I started up and led a claims analytics team. And I appreciated being in the claims function, because essentially that's what insurance companies sell. So getting to the heart of like what drives our revenue. And so that was a great experience. I was also, during that time, I was very involved in our employee resource group network. So we had 7 of them at Liberty Mutual. I was the national co-chair of our Asian and Ally employee resource group, which is where I met Deeksha, who started up, No Worker Left Behind. And I really loved the opportunity I had there in terms of creating career development opportunities for folks, mentoring, networking, giving folks opportunities to develop themselves. And so this was kind of like a side hustle outside of my day job, navigating and leading a claims analytics team. And so kind of upon doing self-reflection, I was like, this side hustle energizes me a lot more than this day job. And I think that says something. And so I started networking with different folks that I knew at the company, saying that I was interested in getting back into the talent in the HR space. And then there was an opportunity within our technology organization for an HR business partner role, supporting our personal lines technology organization. So it was 2,500 tech professionals across 15 countries. And this was my first time becoming an HR business partner. I was like deer in headlights, had no idea what I was getting myself into, very new realm. Had a ton of learning from there, but was really energized by the work that I was able to do, both kind of in that theme of like the people element, and then also like being very, very close to the business on the technology side. So that was, I really loved that type of role. And so when I was ready to transition to a new company where I am now at Citizens, I looked for jobs in the HR business partner space. And so actually I should take a step back. In terms of the HRBP role, for those of you that don't know, we essentially sit at the intersection of HR and the business to help think through, what are the business's goals for the next 3 to 5 years, and how do we enable their people plan and their workforce strategy in order to get there, right? And right now, obviously, there's a lot of discussion on like AI and automation, and how do we make sure that our folks are prepared in order to navigate in that type of hybrid work world going forward. So that's something that we think about. How do we design organizations effectively in order to have managers lead the most effectively? Like, do we have the right leaders in place? Do we have the right talent in place? So there's a lot of strategic thinking that gets to get paired with the HR components, and then also being able to impact the business from a talent angle, essentially. And so right now I do this a similar type of role at Citizens Bank, where I've been for a year and a half. And I support our operations team as well as our enterprise data and analytics team. And yeah, so that's kind of my career journey so far. Has been navigating a lot of different paths.
Yeah.
And I've been lucky enough to have a lot of, mentors and folks along the way that have helped me in terms of my self-reflection and navigating different points of my career. So I said a lot. I'm
That's
happy to share more, answer any questions.
Yeah, that's really fascinating. Like, about career transition, I want to ask, like many professionals today are thinking about changing careers because industries are evolving so quickly, especially with AI reshaping jobs. So, what advice would you give to someone who's considering a career pivot but is afraid of starting over?
Yep. Yeah, no, that's a common thing in terms of a lot of folks that I talk to. And first of all, I think it's very brave whenever anyone is willing to and wants to take a career change, right? Taking on something new is never easy. And I have had those, points in the road in my career where, it's sometimes kind of easier to stay put where you are. But thinking about, the future and where you want your career to go, I think is really important. So as I would say, when I've considered career shifts, there's a couple of components that I want to emphasize. One is around the self-reflection piece. So I think that's important to look back on your career, really do some true self-reflection to think about, like, what is it that like energizes me? What is it that, I don't love doing? How do I want the company culture to look? And then also being able to tell your story is really important, like as you start interviewing. So um, you know, I've told you my story. If someone looks at my resume, it could look all over the place, right? It's a lot of different types of
Right.
roles. In the way that I was able to, juxtapose the people side and the strategy side. There's that, narrative arc that goes through my career that
Mhm.
then makes sense. So I think it's really important to be able to tie your various experiences into a story that would be compelling to future employers, right? And so that's the first thing anyone will ever ask you when you go to an interview, like, tell me about yourself. What is it that brings you here? And then obviously they want to know, what type of skills and what type of experiences that you can bring to the table to benefit that company, right? So you want to be able to know that. So along with the self-reflection, the storytelling, I would say networking is a huge, huge piece of it as well. I feel like right now the job market is so tough. So being able to talk to people in specific companies and getting their perspective, and then having folks give a referral is even better. And so what I did was leverage LinkedIn um, a lot. So I would encourage all of you to leverage LinkedIn. And if you're able to, LinkedIn Premium is a feature where you're able to have a little bit more ability in terms of reaching out to folks that are not necessarily in your direct network. Because I found that's helpful as well, like looking at second degree connections, third degree connections, and reaching out to different folks. But one thing I also learned through the navigation of different careers is that LinkedIn posts, in terms of content sharing, is also very impactful in terms of just like getting your name out there, getting your story out there. And so if there are topics that you're really passionate about that tie into your career or just tie into who you are, posting about that and having it resonate with people is really great, because then you will see like a lot of people viewing your profile, and it's a great way for people to um, or for you to see like who might be interested in that topic and people who comment or like, and then you can utilize those people as connections to reach out to and have a career discussion. But I would say
Mhm.
having those networking conversations, and when you go into those, you want to know kind of your story, what you want to talk about. And then you want to ask, you don't want to go in saying like, I want a job, like give me a job, right? Not that type of mentality, but more like I'm seeking to learn. Like this is what I have to offer, and I want to learn more about your company culture. I want to learn more about like the different types of roles. This is what I've done, so that you can kind of like pair what you can offer to what like they might be looking for, but not in a way of like, I want you to get me a job, right? And so as you're having those conversations, um, uh, people also are often like willing to recommend you to other people to speak with. So if you're able to articulate what it is that you offer, what it is that you need support with, and then don't hesitate to ask people like, oh, do you have anyone that you think would be beneficial for me to speak with?
Mhm.
And so that's another way to continue to build your network. So those are just a few things,
Yeah.
to recap, like make sure you know your story, do your self-reflection. LinkedIn content posting is a great way to get visibility. And then the networking, I would say, are key elements as you think about career transitions. But I would say, first of all, like, give yourself grace. It is a very, very tough job market. It took me quite a while to find the current role that I'm in. So I think the patience and the grace is also important to keep in mind.
Right, right. Great advice. Yeah. And one more thing I would like to ask, like from your perspective as an HR leader, when you are evaluating candidates today, so what qualities consistently stand out? Like, uh, is it like technical experience, business acumen, curiosity, adaptability, or something else entirely? What do you look for?
Yep, that's a great question. I would say with the world changing so quickly, there's a few different core ones that I would say are super important. One is the ability to navigate ambiguity and being very flexible and agile. And so what that means is like having a growth mindset where you're willing to learn, willing to take feedback, willing to be curious, that ability to constantly evolve, especially as times are changing so quickly, right? So that's one, first and foremost, you want someone who is willing to take on a new challenge and be
Mhm.
comfortable navigating something that may be very uncomfortable because it's the first time that you've been doing something, right? Another piece I would say is around critical thinking and problem solving. So you want people to be able to think through a complex challenge or a complex process and be able to essentially like figure it out, right? So if you have the ability to problem solve and break down a problem into like the various components and then figure out a path forward, I would say that's really important as well. Another piece is around strategic thinking. Like, are you able to think into the future, have a vision? I emphasize a lot of keeping the end in mind. And so, whatever role that you're in, like, what are the outcomes that you're trying to achieve with whatever you are doing? Because oftentimes, certain roles you're just focused on executing and certain activities, but like executing in service of what? So making sure that you're able to like take that step back and frame in terms of what are the outcomes I'm trying to achieve? How do I have a strategy around the work that I'm doing? Um, so I would say that. And then I think the ability to ask questions and ask the right
Mhm.
questions is really important too, because that is what helps you learn and navigate some of this, complexity and new environment is really key. So I would say, so honestly, like a lot of those soft skills, and of course, depending on the role, like the technical skills will be important. Like obviously, there's obviously going to be coding skills and different programming languages that they would test you on. So it will be very role specific in terms of the technical skills, but I would say having those broader leadership skills and ability to be uncomfortable, right, and be willing to learn and grow in a constantly changing environment is key.
Amazing. I hope everyone, in the audience, listeners are taking notes of these important, very beneficial inputs, insights she is providing. And one more thing, like candidates often ask, how do I stand out? So when you look at resumes or interview candidates, what's something that immediately makes someone memorable, like in a good way?
Yep. Yeah, you definitely don't want it memorable in a bad way.
Yeah.
But yeah, what makes candidates memorable. So I think in terms of the resumes, it's interesting right now, right? Because a lot of companies are utilizing AI in terms of
Mhm.
being able to like screen resumes. And so what a lot of candidates do, are kind of like the candidates themselves are probably using AI to create the
Yeah.
resumes, and then the
Mhm.
companies are utilizing AI to screen the resumes. But obviously you want to make sure, like on the top of my resume, I call out like the skill sets that I have, because I think now as the world changes so dramatically so quickly, employers anchor on like what are the skill sets, right? It's not like obviously the experiences are important, but what are like the skill sets? Like what is your toolkit that you're going to be able to bring to any organization, right? So in terms of the skills that I have put on mine, as an example, I put like executive coaching, leadership development, organizational effectiveness, recruiting, all those different skills that I've built over time. And to reference a toolkit, a mentor of mine early on in my career was talking about how all of us hold our little own toolbox or toolkit, whereby each of the experiences that you have, you're adding tools to the toolkit. So regardless of what what experience it is, like there are skills that you'll be able to learn. And the more that you can learn skills that are transferable from one job to the next, kind of like the skills I just talked about in terms of like critical thinking, navigating ambiguity, all of that stuff, the stronger your toolkit that you can bring to the next job are. So I was saying in terms of the resume, making sure to call out your skill set. I would also say in terms of talking through each of the experiences, the more that you can make things either quantifiable or or outcomes oriented, to my point earlier, right? It's oftentimes we get so caught up on, there's just all these different activities that we're doing, these activities that we're doing, but your work doesn't matter if you're doing activities that are not leading to the outcomes that you want to, like that your organization or your team wants to achieve, right? So the more that you can orient your resume on like, I did XYZ that resulted in, $5 million of savings, or resulted in this team becoming more effective, or resulted in, code, like delivering this amazing AI product within my organization, right? It's like, what is the outcome of what your work was? And so those are a couple of things that I would say I would highlight for sure. And then also the bottom thing, like the fun, like I call it kind of a fun fact section, right? You can say, leadership and other interests. And it is kind of nice when people put like a personal thing, right? Like you enjoy traveling or hiking, or I have an adventure cat social influencer as an example. I don't have that on my resume, but just like, something that will stand out, that will make people remember you. Obviously something that's like corporate appropriate.
Right. That's the USP, yeah. And when you said AI, like AI is changing almost every industry, including recruiting. So how do you see AI changing hiring like over next few years? And what should job
Yep.
seekers be doing today to prepare? And also I welcome audience if they have any questions, they can type in and then we can take those also.
Yep. Yep, perfect. Yeah. Yes, AI is the talk of the town for sure. I was in an all-day session with the, many leaders in the HR organization talking through as we transform our organization and become more AI savvy and digitally fluent, what is recruiting going to look like? And so a couple of the things that they talked about, obviously what I brought up is like agents are screening resumes now, right? It's not humans necessarily. And then they're also going to be implementing, many companies have already started implementing agents that do like the first initial screening process. Because for example, right now, if a job gets, 200 to 500 or however many resumes, right? It's really, really hard for a human recruiter to be able to go through all of those. But with like agentic AI, they're able to, quickly review every single 100% of all people, right? And so through that process, again, to your point, is that you want to be able to stand out, right? If like agents are doing the same interview, asking the same questions to different people. So the more that you can be very crisp and clear about your story, I think one of the things that I've noticed as I interview people that is a challenge as they're not like going through interviews is when people are very long-winded and not able to be very clear and concise about their story. So I would encourage you as you're going through interviews to kind of write down what are the bullet points that you want to make sure to be able to convey during that interview, right? Because it's easy to like get off topic, especially as interviewers will ask you a variety of different questions, but just like make sure you have those like few bullet points that you want to be able to like inject at whatever point like during that interview, so that you stay anchored on what you want to make sure to convey and the value that you'll add.
Agreed. Yeah. Also, regarding like leadership and like your career, you have also worked closely with business leaders throughout your career. So, what qualities have you consistently seen in people who eventually became, exceptional leaders? So, what were their qualities which you thought you should be sharing with
Yep.
our audience?
Yeah. It's a great question. I would say leadership, a lot of what I talked about earlier would be kind of those foundational features of defining great leaders, right? Like that ability to be agile and constantly be learning and constantly shifting and being open to different perspectives. Um, like, that critical thinking, problem solving, all of that. I would say one thing too, in terms of leaders, the ability to articulate a mission and a vision that other people can get behind and rally around, obviously, is really important, right? Because if you want to lead a broader organization, like, how do you articulate that strategic vision that you want your organization to march toward, so people know,
Mm-hmm.
where you're going and how each of their individual roles ties to the bigger picture. I think that's really important for like leaders to be able to articulate. Um, and I would say executive presence is something that you notice in many leaders, right? And by that,
Right.
people interpret it differently, but to break it down, I would say executive presence is reflected in a variety of different things. One is how you convey your message, right? That crisp, concise, um, convicted way of being able to deliver messages. Executive presence also help, being able to articulate that strategic vision, being able to be um, very tailored in terms of different audiences that you would be able to present to, right? Like if you're presenting to like the CEO versus if you're presenting to like your more technical partners that you're working with, like obviously that message would be very different. So the ability to deliver messages to different audiences very effectively. And I would say leaders too they would understand, a lot of a variety of different components. They don't need to understand like all of the technical detail, but like being able to figure out who those right people would be to bring to the table in order to like elevate talent and to be able to clearly articulate the story. So I would say good leaders are also really, really good talent cultivators, right? They think about the people in their organization, what the skills that they offer are, like what are their development opportunities and how do they give them the experiences that would help them go to the next step in their career. So I would say that's probably one of the most important things, right? Like to be able to
Mm.
see where people can contribute the most and how do you put
Yeah,
the talent to the best use in order to achieve your organizational goals.
exactly, exactly. To value people. Yeah. We have one question from Shireen. She's saying you have an expensive work history in many different fields. How do you feel about including short-term contracts or full work histories on our resumes? Is it better to have a gap if at that time you are working at a place that may not align with the job that I'm applying for?
Yes, that is a great question, Shireen. I actually, so before, in between my time at Liberty Mutual and Citizens, I actually had a prolonged period of time. My role, everyone in my role was like eliminated because like that role evolved a lot. And so they offered me an opportunity to take on a different role, but I figured it was the right time to leave my company and try something new. And so I made the difficult decision of like just leaving a company without having a job. However, I did have a variety of different um, mentors or people that I have worked with in the past, and I was trying to seek short-term opportunities while I was looking for a job because I mean the job market was so hard. It took me 7 to 8 months, 8+ months. I took on some pieces of short-term work. It was specifically related to talent management and working with a mentor of mine who had, her own startup company, and I was able to leverage some of the skills and experiences that I had to help certain financial institutions build out a talent management framework and a kind of leadership development framework. So it was related to um, the field that I wanted to go into, and I unless it's like way off base, I would encourage you to put it because I think if there are large gaps of time in your resume, people have obviously sometimes concerns or questions, but the more that you can explain that gap away and pivot. I don't know specifically, and I'm happy to hear specifically, Shireen, but like if there are specific skills that you developed, back to the toolkit example before, that would able to translate into the roles that you were looking for, right? You want to highlight those because it could be something that's completely out of the industry, completely out of the function that you're looking to go into, but like, there probably are things that you learned in that role, or are learning in that role, that you're able to emphasize and then bring to the future role. So I would say it is a good idea to share those experiences, right? It just adds more color to the foundation that you have coming into another role.
Okay. I was going to say, so specifically for me, if I am in between jobs, there is a recreation center and a natural area in my area that I've worked at on and off since I was 16. So when there are gaps or I'm in between jobs, I'm basically a camp counselor or a park naturalist. Like I lead hikes and stuff. So that doesn't really speak to me trying to enter the cybersecurity field. So those are kind of the gaps. It might be a 6-month gap on my resume, but at the time I was leading people on hikes, which doesn't scream cybersecurity.
Yeah, no, and I think that's a fair point. First of all, you're a woman down my avenue because I love hiking and have done similar things of like leading groups and camping, and I love that type of thing. And so it doesn't like, so to your point, it doesn't seem like there's adjacencies, but think about like the leadership skills you're developing, right, and your ability to lead a group and drive people toward um, a goal, right? Being able to influence and help motivate and all of like there's those things, right, that would translate to your role in cybersecurity, even if it doesn't sound directly, right? But like leadership skills, influencing skills, ability to motivate people, would, because I think that adds a different dimension, right? You obviously have the technical skills to work in cybersecurity, and so if you have those chops, adding some of these like softer skills, right? I do think you develop a lot being able to like lead. I don't know how big those groups are, but like leading groups and like you're the person, right? Who's coaching people, who's motivating people, who's driving people towards success, right? So some of those, I think those would supplement the rest of your technical experience. So I would not leave it out. I think it's really like it's also like a interesting thing about you, right? We talked about how do you make resumes stand out. I think that's fascinating. It's something that's different, right?
Thank you. That makes a lot of sense. So maybe
Yeah,
I
of
can just
course.
reword that experience to tailor to whatever job I'm going for.
Yeah, and you can also use, AI to help you think through how do you highlight the experiences in, that naturalist hiking leader that would translate to a cybersecurity job. Like I've done things like that too, in terms of how do you connect A to B, even if it doesn't seem like it, because there are even like on the surface, like the things that I mentioned, I'm sure there's things I'm not thinking about. Perfect. I think I see another question. Thank you for sharing. You mentioned approaching networking with a learning mindset rather than asking for a job. How would you recommend starting conversations with people you don't know? When someone reaches out to you on LinkedIn, what makes you actually want to respond? Are there certain approaches that stand out compared to the typical um, networking messages? So I would say a couple of things. It's a really, really good question. Um, for conversations with people that you don't know, I would first, ideally, you can try to get a warm introduction of like, even if it's like a second or third degree connection, because like on LinkedIn, you can see, as an example, if someone used to work at a company that you used to work at, but you don't know them, you can use that as a commonality of, oh, we both used to work at Ernst and Young, and this a short blurb about your experience type of thing. But um, the finding some connection point, whether it's like a person or a company or an interest, if someone put on their resume that they're a naturalist or a hike, or like, on their LinkedIn, you can talk about that. Like I reached out to someone randomly because I heard she took, some big travel adventure like around the world. And like, that's been, my dream of doing something similar. So I use that as like a kind of the opener, right? Because I think people love talking about themselves and sharing, and you, to your point, a lot of people are getting reached out to a lot, right? So the more that you can like hook people. I have someone who like I know is like a bird watcher, and so like I he's someone at work, but like so it's not through LinkedIn, but it's the same sentiment of how do you build connections with people. So I would send him like bird pictures, like when I take them, right? To how do you build that relationship? So it's the same sentiment, like finding commonalities or finding people in common to give you that warm introduction. But I would, to that point about the learning mindset, like, framing it as like, I'm, super fascinated by your career background. I would love, to take 20 minutes of your time to just, learn a little bit more. And, this is what I'm looking for right now. But make it like a short, crisp message, not like a novel when you're reaching out for the first time. Does that help?
Yeah, definitely. It helps a lot. Thank you. And
Okay.
after doing that first approach, and maybe if they accept to schedule a call with you, what do you think that it's the best next approach? Just to ask questions about the position, the company, their experience, or just let them talk about their experience and their projects?
Yep. Yeah, I would start with having that story about yourself. Like, say, you want to start the call with like just introduce, like I would love to introduce myself briefly, this is me, like, and then your little elevator pitch, right? So I would start the call with that, and then obviously have questions that you want to probe a little bit more on. And so, I mean, you yourself should know why you're reaching out to that person in the first place, right? It's like, you saw that they're in the industry that you were interested in, or you saw they had the similar role, or whatever it is. So make sure you come with questions, because the most beneficial conversations I've had with folks are when they come to me with questions. Or the most interesting, I would say, if someone reaches out to me on LinkedIn, is like they come really prepared with questions. They know where they're trying to go, because you can say like, this is your elevator pitch, which includes like kind of your experiences, but also like, where are you trying to go? Like, how can this person, like, people want to help, right? So if you can articulate where you need their help in terms of getting from where you are now to your goal, and where their unique ability to add value to you is, the better, right? And so having the questions of, wanting to learn about their career, wanting to learn about their leadership style, like whatever it is. But you yourself, like, you're not reaching out to people randomly. You obviously have an intention of why you're reaching out to XYZ person. So being able to tailor that with a learning mindset. But I think the most important thing is like, know your story, know what your goals are, so that you can help them. So if like someone, comes, think about it, if someone's coming to you, right? How, like, it's hard to help someone if they don't know where they want to go. But the more you can say like where you want to go and like what you need from them, and the more specific you can be, like the better, right? So I would just suggest those.
Okay, perfect. Thank you so much.
Yeah, you're welcome. Let's see. I'd love to hear about your path to, let me make sure that I'm capturing this. Okay, so I'd love to hear about your path to citizens in this market. What specific networking skills that help you land the role? I would say something like the similar to what I answered for Salma, in terms of finding those connection points with people and looking at their profile, seeing where there's something of interest, and creating that initial hook. And then having your story very crisp and concise, and knowing what your end goal is, so that people can clearly be able to help you. Because I know when people reach out to me and I'm able, like, if I'm able to help, like, I feel good, right? If I am not able to help at all, like, it just feels like a waste of my time, right? So the more that you can articulate, where you're trying to go, and how someone can help you. I'm currently working on getting my insurance license, and I don't have a license yet, but wanted to know what kind of jobs I can look for that does require a license. And what is a good way to create my resume, being this is a new career and I don't have any experience in that yet. Look for that does not require a license. I don't know specifically about kind of insurance licenses, but I would say does require a license. I'm not sure that I can speak intelligently to like specific parallel jobs that wouldn't recruit real license. But actually, one thing that comes to mind immediately, because at Liberty Mutual, obviously it was an insurance company, it was a property and casualty insurance company. One way to get into, like, a first step into companies is through like the contact center, where you don't need a license, but you're interacting with customers. and you're learning a ton about the business, and you're learning about all the products, and you're learning about, and like the turnover in contact centers are often really high, so they're often hiring. So we have like evergreen postings for roles in contact centers. So I think that's my initial reaction, because like that, like essentially a role that gives you a breadth of knowledge in whatever industry that you're trying to get into that doesn't require a license. That's like an initial reaction of contact centers, I would say, is a good place to explore, particularly in insurance, if that's where you're looking to go.
And it is just one more from Sufi. She's saying, thank you for your helpful insight. I have a question about newcomers. Should we briefly explain an immigration-related employment gap in the cover letter, or wait to address it during the interview?
Sorry, newcomers to the country?
Yeah, I think, yeah. Should we
Yep.
briefly explain an immigration-related employment gap in the cover letter, or should we wait to address it during the interview?
Yeah, I don't think you need to explain it in the cover letter. I think the cover letter is more just about, your interest in the company, your interest in the role, what skill sets that you bring. I don't think that's necessarily to put in the cover letter. I would say once you're able to get them interested in talking to you, then I think it's something that
Then
you
they
bring
can
up, but I don't think
explain.
you need to proactively, include that.
Okay. Okay. Hope it's answered your question, Sophie. And one more thing came to my mind, like for early career advice, like what advice would you give to students? Because we have few students also at our panel, students or early career professionals who are still figuring out their career path and worry about making the wrong first choice. So what advice you would give to them?
Yep. I would say I don't think there's a wrong first choice in the beginning of your career, right? It's meant as a time of exploration, and as you're able to, because I think whatever job you take, right, there's something that you build from it, right? It's like you're getting a skill, you're meeting a person. Like there's so many people that I met in like jobs that I still stay in touch with that have potentially down the road helped me find my future job, right? And so there's always some benefit that you can get out of it. So I honestly, I don't think you can go wrong in your first job as long as you approach it with like I'm going to build out my toolkit in whatever job it is. So trying out something new, and it also gives you a sense of like what you like and what you don't like. And so I would say I wish I was back in that place where anything, you can try anything that you want and feel out what works, what doesn't. But I would also say don't be afraid to ask questions. I was super, super, super shy growing up and even early in my career, and would have a question but would hesitate to ask the question. But like you don't learn if you don't ask the question.
Right.
And also I've noticed that I've also noticed in like bigger group settings, like asking questions also helps you get noticed, right? Like if you have like an insightful question or a thought-provoking question, oftentimes people, like if I raise my hand in like a town hall or something and ask something, I've had multiple people come up to me afterwards being like, oh, that was such an interesting question that you asked, and I wanted to talk about it more. So that's another way to like build a relationship. I would also say show appreciation, right? Especially through the networking process. It goes for like people early on in their career or throughout just networking, right? Making sure to follow up and send that thank you note, making sure to stay in touch, right? Even if someone isn't able to help you find a job now, like down the road, they might be able to. So the more that you're able to maintain those relationships, right? You can be like, oh, we talked about XYZ thing and I saw an article about the same topic, like I thought of you, right? So keeping those connection points open, I would say, are huge. But yeah, I would say also just like don't to the question point, don't be afraid to speak up and voice your opinion. Like even if you are early on in your career or you're more junior and there's a lot of really senior people around, like you probably have a lot of value to add from your various experiences. So I would just say don't hesitate, because I think that's where I went awry because I was too nervous to speak up.
Right, amazing. Yes. So we have to, first speak up and take the risk. You're absolutely right. Then
Yeah, take
people will
risks. I would
notice
say
us.
is a good one.
Yep.
Yes.
And one more thing, like if you could go back and mentor your younger self at the beginning of your career, so what's one piece of advice you would give yourself that you wish you would have known then?
I would say, I mean, it's kind of related to that last question, but I would say don't, be bold, don't be afraid to speak up, maintain relationships are at the core of everything, honestly. Like relationships make things so much easier, right? Relationships make getting your work done in your current job easier. Relationships make networking easier. Relationships make finding a job easier. I would say, like, anchor on relationships, and it doesn't mean that you need to have like 1,000 best friends, but it's more like building relationships, finding commonalities with different people that you work with or that you're in school with, and staying in touch, right? You never know how, you can help someone or they can help you down the road. So I would say relationship building is really really key, and being genuine in that, right? It's like caring and being genuine, not just, it's not the mentality of building relationships for the sake of like what they can do for you, but like how can you make it a mutually beneficial experience.
Agreed, indeed, yes. Really valuable perspective. Anyone else has any question? There's no question then. Yeah, okay.
Oh no, I love a perspective on projects. So the candidate doesn't have direct professional experience in a role, but has built meaningful projects independent. How much weight do those projects carry? What makes them stand? I would say those are great. I mean, projects are an amazing way to enhance your experience. Right now, actually at Citizens, we started creating gigs internally, which essentially are projects that people take on, whether it becomes like a short-term full-time role or like a project that they take on in addition to their current work. I would say definitely highlight that. It depends on I don't know what projects you're talking about, but same thing as the question earlier, like in terms of like, how do you tie the experience that you had, skills that you developed, what you can then bring to a future role? Like, how do you tie those things to whatever role that you're looking for? And there's always a way. And if you can't think of a way immediately, use AI to try to come up with a way, because there's 100% a way to tie two things that you don't think at all have any connection. There's some connection that can be made. So it's all about how do you frame that story and frame that project. Okay, I'd love to hear your opinion on job searching. Do you think it's better to choose a few companies we really want to work for, follow them closely, and focus on their opportunities, or is it better to apply every day to any relevant job we find on LinkedIn or Indeed? I would say be strategic and thoughtful about it. Like resume dropping, dropping 500 resumes into the ether is not going to get you a job. It's more about, like, companies want to know that you know them, and companies want to, and what I mentioned earlier is like having a connection into the company is really helpful. So make sure to peruse your LinkedIn in terms of the company. And, I would keep a pulse on specific companies that you're interested in. I feel like when I was looking, I maybe had 20 companies that were within my certain criteria that I would focus on, because if you have like 500 companies that you're looking at, like, you just are not able to be strategic about how you're focusing your efforts, and like dropping resumes just out there is not going to help. So like I would say, like know what industry you're in, know what the criteria that you're searching for is, right? Like, as I was looking for a job, I went to a totally different company than the original one I thought I would be searching for, because I was looking at 1,000 to 2,000 people company. I wanted to look for an HR business partner type of role. I wanted, a culture that was good. So you just need to know what you're looking for, and then find those companies within that space. And again, AI can help you. If you know those criteria, it can help you target some companies as well, and industries. So I would say that I would recommend being more strategic versus dropping resumes, because if you're more strategic and targeted on companies, you can figure out who are the people that you know in your network, like who are what are the jobs that they have available, are there people that, you know, internally that you can talk to, and just be a lot more targeted. And then also, as you have networking conversations, you can be really clear, and you don't need to necessarily name the company unless it's like the person that works at the company. But if you're to the point earlier of like, people want to be able to help you, but you need to be able to articulate what you need, right? So if you're saying, you know, these are the criteria of the type of company I'm looking for, then people are more easily able to be like, oh, like I know this like these companies that are within your criteria, then I can help you think through, versus, you know, applying for so many at once.
So you got
Hopefully
to
that helps.
shortlist the companies. Out of those 500, we'd have to first shortlist.
Yeah, and it doesn't have to be like a short list
Target.
of 5. It could be like 20 or 30, but like in a way
Yeah.
that they just fall within your criteria, right?
Criteria.
Of what you're looking for, and know why you're looking at them. But then you can just be a lot more targeted in your efforts.
Mm-hmm. Got it. Hope it answers your question, Sophie.
Tomato mozzarella paneer.
Yes, thank you so much. It was so useful.
Okay, wonderful. Any other questions?
Anybody else? No, then I would like to know one more thing, Elise. Like at No Worker Left Behind, you know, we work with job seekers, veterans, immigrants, and career changers who are, you know, preparing for today's workforce. So, like, from an employer's perspective, what can workforce organizations like ours do to better prepare people, not just to get hired, but to build a long-term careers? So, what we shall do?
What you as an organization should do. I think this is amazing that you host like these sessions for folks to be able to talk to practitioners that can offer, you know, value and insights. So hopefully this conversation is helpful today. But I would say the more interaction that you can have people get with like different companies, different industries, right? Like career fair type of things, I think would be great. And I'm sure I'm sure you have partnerships with different like corporations, but partnerships, and also seeing if there's people that are willing to provide mentorships, I would say is huge too. Cause like I mentor a variety of different people, and like they can come to me for career advice or whatever. So the more you can do, like exposure, right? Exposure for people to different companies, to different career paths, to different people, mentors, different skill build. Like I think like skill building sessions would be really good too. At Citizens, I know we do some work with nonprofits to help train people in like financial independence or financial acumen, right? So different like skills that might be helpful for folks, like, you know, whether it's networking skills or, you know, navigating ambiguity or consulting or whatever it is, right? Like how do you give some opportunities for those?
Okay, Salma again asking something. You mentioned the importance of being able to articulate who you are and what you bring. So how can someone intentionally develop the skill? Are there any exercise or habits you would recommend?
Yes, that is a very good question. I would say what I did when I was trying to do this exercise was just kind of wrote down on a piece of paper just whatever you like like reflections about who you are as a person, what energizes you. It doesn't have to even be in professional life, right? It could just be like in general, what motivates you? Who are you? What type, like, you know, what are your values? How do you enjoy spending your time? What do you think a successful day would look like, right? That if you were to look at a job or even a personal day, like what would success look like for you? And so I think the more that you can jot down like reflections about yourself, and I would say first just take that time to self-reflect. And I know I keep on plugging AI, but AI has become my like executive coach and therapist and everything these days. So I do like I use
True.
the chat feature on Claude and ChatGPT to talk through, help me think through things like that. But I would say like even to ChatGPT, you can say like I would like some help thinking through how to put together my elevator pitch of who I am. Help me create a reflection exercise and ask me questions to help me articulate who I am, what matters to me, what values do I have, and then go through that exercise. Like you can create your own essentially curriculum to develop that skill and develop that process. So which I like, it's exciting for me to even think through how I would do that now, because I did it very manually when I was creating my own story. But I also think it's important too to think through the why you've taken on certain roles. Like for an example, like if I were to tell people about my career path without that common thread of the psychology piece and the analytics piece, it'd be a little bit all over the place. But the reason why I chose the careers that I chose was because like I was super interested in like the statistics and the math and the analytical capabilities, or I really enjoyed the people dynamics and like the organizational dynamics, and how people tick. Like that was like my core why. So you have to understand like what motivates you, what is the why and how you do, and then what does a good day look like for you? What type of people do you like to interact with? What kind of culture do you want to be in? What values do you have? What are things that don't energize you? What are things that like you hate doing? Like for an example, one of the pieces of my job that I really struggle with and really don't like is when there's a lot of red tape and like complex processes. When I'm a big like systems thinker of like how do you make systems more effective, and so when there's like a lot of clunky processes on top of each other, like it's just really like a big struggle for me. So then I realized that I like operational improvement, because when you think of the biggest pain points you have, because I read a quote one time about like lean in to where there is pain, because where there is pain there is opportunity to like solve a challenge, right? So if it's like a big gnarly challenge and you're like, why is XYZ this way, it gives you an opportunity to change the way things are.
True.
A lot of people charge for mentorship and stuff like that. These fee scare people. It's interesting because mentorship. So I have never charged anybody for mentorship. We at our companies have mentorship programs. So I don't know if this is like career coaching. I would say maybe career coaching people do charge exorbitant fees. I would say like for mentors. So a couple of things on the mentor piece, because I would say there's a few different ways to think about mentors, right? Mentors could be official mentors that were assigned in a capacity, like if it's through a program like this, right, No Worker Left Behind, or it's through your company, like those are official mentorships. But there's also people that you have just built relationships with over time, whether it's like a professor or a friend or an ex-coworker. Like they can become mentors to you as well, even if it's not like this person is my mentor. But like I think of mentors as anyone that can help you provide advice, provide perspective, challenge you, right? So I think you can think of a variety of different people as mentors. But I do know that there's like career coaching with scary fees. So, but there are alternative ways by which to get some of these support systems in place. And I think I don't know if No Worker Left Behind offers mentorships, but I think that would be a fantastic thing. And then also there's other organizations that offer mentorships as well that would not be charged.
So yeah, we are coming up on the end of our session. It's almost time.
And I saw
Anybody
someone
want
said
to-
if you can connect with me on LinkedIn. Yeah, I'm very happy. Feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn and let me know if I can be of any help to you as you navigate various career decisions or whatnot. I'm very happy to chat.
Thank you. I hope you're
Um,
open to like any what was any fire chats that I host on my school club as well.
Sorry, what chats? Fireside chats?
Yeah, or networking events that I host for my club as well.
Oh yeah. Feel free to reach out, and I'm happy to participate in whatever anyone needs. I'm always happy to offer my advice and perspective. I've benefited a lot from others in the past, so I like to pay it forward.
Thank you so much, and thank you for this networking session. I really enjoyed your career path and your insights as well.
Thank you for that. I'm glad it was helpful.
Yeah,
And then there's
Elise,
still one other question. From your perspective, which part of resume matters most and which part of LinkedIn profile matters most? Which should we make sure to include each one? I would say there's a section in LinkedIn called About Me. And so I would make sure that because that's like the first thing that people look at. So make sure that you have a crisp, that's your elevator pitch essentially, right? And make that appealing. Again, AI can help you do that, but that About Me section is interesting, like critical. And then I would say on the resume, outlining your specific skills is really critical, because now as jobs and organizations evolve so quickly, like they're breaking, instead of looking at jobs necessarily, they're breaking it down into tasks and skills that like are the basic building blocks of how you get work done. So articulating those skills is really important. And then I would say at the bottom of the resume, just that piece of something that could be a hook for someone, right? Like whether you're a naturalist or whether you run marathons or whatever, like it's always not, like that can find, like have people find commonality with you, or just something that sparks dialogue. And so I know we're at time, but
yeah,
very happy to be here. Thank you for the invite. Hopefully this was a helpful chat. Please feel free
yes.
to connect with me on LinkedIn, or if it would be beneficial for me to, help with any, school networking thing or whatever, like please do let me know.
Yeah, you guys feel free to connect with her. And Elise, thank you so much for sharing your journey, your insight with us today. I think one of the biggest takeaway for me is that careers don't always follow a straight line. And I think sometimes the experiences we gain in different roles are exactly what prepare us for future opportunities. And thank you for being so open about your experiences and for giving all of us practical advice that we can take back into our own careers. I truly appreciate your time and wish you continued success, Elise. Thank you so much for your time today.
Wonderful. Thank you. Happy to be here and nice to meet you all. Take care.
Likewise. Bye-bye.
Okay. Bye.